Okay, so for this next part of the project, what we're going to be doing is working in the state animator, or the animator panel, so that when Tommy collides with another game object as a box collider, then he explodes. And so, the object is to not explode, but we need to sort of wire that up to make it work. So I'm going to switch over here into the game, and we're going to go into our sprites folder, and we have to import a new asset. So we're going to right click in the sprites folder, import new asset. We're going to go back to the assets folder where we had everything else. So for me, that's it. I put it in my downloads folder. So downloads, assets, and then I'm going to take this boom sprite sheet.png. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click import. So you can see that this sprite sheet has 10 different frames. And so what we need to do, the same sort of setup that we did before, we're going to change our pixels per unit to 1, or also be 100 times too small. Change bilinear to point under filter mode. And then we don't want to compress this at all. So we're going to set that to none. And we're going to change our sprite mode to multiply and click apply. We could also just hit sprite editor and then it'll ask if we want to apply. Either way, we're good. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 frames in this animation. So we're going to slice this, and we're going to do it not automatically, but instead by cell count. And we're going to change this to 10 columns, 1 row. Click slice. Then we have the 0th through the 9th frame. We'll click apply, and we can exit out of the sprite editor. So now what we're going to do, just like we did with the Tommy sprite sheet, is click each individual frame. So click on the first one, hold the shift key, click on the last one, and I'm going to drag this up into my hierarchy. This is going to create an animation file. I'm going to name this boom, and I'm going to place it into, not my sprites folder, but instead into my animations folder, and I'll go ahead and click save. If I accidentally saved it to my sprites folder, then I could just move it in my projects panel down here. So now you can see I have an explosion animation that is currently in my hierarchy right here, and I'll play it so that you can sort of see how it goes through. It's going to sort of cycle through, but what we don't have is the ability yet to make it so that Tommy, when he collides, turns into that exploding boom animation. So I'm going to let this sort of spin and do its thing, and there we go. Now you can see the exploding animation. It'll be a little smoother on your computer. My computer's having a hard time keeping up with my screen recording and game development at the same time. So what I'm actually going to do is look in my animations folder. You can see that I've got this boom animation file and then this boom controller. We're actually not going to use the boom controller, so I'm actually just going to delete it by right-clicking and going to delete, and then I'm going to delete it from my hierarchy as well. All right, so I hit delete right there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our animator panel and we're going to drag the Tommy controller, which is what we're seeing right here in the animator, because Tommy is selected in my hierarchy, so that's the animation controller that we're seeing. I'm going to drag the boom animation into the controller, and I'm going to right click on run, and I'm going to make a transition to the boom animation. So now if I press play, you're going to see that it's going to run through the 3 frames of the animation and then transition to the explosion. So you can start to get a sense of how this works. But you're going to see that this isn't exactly what we are going to want out of it. So boom, it happens right away. So what we need to do is we need to create a parameter that triggers that explosion. So I'm going to, in my animator panel, go to parameters, and I'm going to add one that is called a bool, or a boolean. This is basically a programmatic way of saying like true or false, more or less. And I'm going to call this boolean collision with a capital C, 2 L's, ISION. And what I'm going to do is click on the transition, and I'm going to say that, hey, transition when this condition is met. When collision is true, that's when I want you to transition. So now if I press play, you can see that it's just going to stay in the run cycle over and over and over again until collision becomes true. And the way that collision will become true is if I check this box. That's now true, so now it explodes. And I'll go ahead and hit play to stop this from happening. What we're going to do is we're going to write a code, the boom script, in order to trigger that when the collision takes place. So I've already written the boom script, so I'm going to attach the boom script to our Tommy character, which I can drag on to my game object in the hierarchy, or I could have gone to add a component. And so basically it's programmatically going to happen. So you'll see when I press play now, the script is going to detect the collision between the two box colliders. And if that is true, or if that happens, that's going to change the Boolean collision, or the collision Boolean, to true, and it will automatically change. So watch what happens right here. I'm fighting gravity. Now I'm going to let gravity sort of bring me back down. There's a collision now, and then boom, Tommy explodes. Now, a couple things that we can do is we can go right here. We don't want the animation to finish and then transition. We want it to happen immediately. So we're going to say that there's no exit time, and we're going to go File, Save, and that is how we can control the state of animation with the animator controller and a script that controls the logic.